This is a tweet from Jack Dorsey, who has a lot of followers on Twitter. And so this idea for a lot of people is going to be new to them. If you've been following my show, and anytime I talk about Bitcoin, I pretty much always bring this up, you already know, or at least have some exposure to inflation and the threat of it. So somebody like this saying this, that, billionaire status, but kind of outside Facebook billionaire. He's not like the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world where everything Mark says is about like Facebook and maintaining his hegemony on social media and people and billions or whatever. Jack's very much kind of the almost reluctant Twitter CEO that is totally outside the system. He goes and lives in Africa, and I think he's in Costa Rica a lot. And he's just not the type to play that Silicon Valley game. And he's very, very understanding and pro-Bitcoin. Like, he's basically a Bitcoiner. A lot of people are talking about this. It's got 70,000 likes, 23,000 people talking about this, and the reach is millions. Millions of people have seen this. Hyperinflation is going to change everything. It's happening. So hyperinflation. Now, this is very clearly defined as, I believe it's about 50% inflation on a monthly basis. It might be yearly basis, but I think it's monthly. So that means that every month, the value of the currency, like let's say the dollar, is now worth 50% less. Historically, over the past, since 1913 or whatever, the purchasing power of the dollar has been between like a 3 and 5% inflation rate, with some years being much higher and some years being lower. And a lot of people believe that since 2020 and the pandemic stimulus, where they printed literally like $4 to $5 trillion, and now another 3 they're printing in this year for the infrastructure bill, we're at basically a 20 to 30% inflation rate. I absolutely believe that. And if you look at real estate prices, stock market prices, everything, you see that this is happening. People are fleeing the dollar because they know they keep making more of it. And they're going to assets where they can store their value without the government manipulating it. So this is what happens real quick. What is inflation? Inflation is the expanding of the money supply, right? It's really the expanding of anything, but as it relates to money, and let's say the US dollar, when they make more dollars, so that you have more dollars chasing fewer goods, prices rise because the purchasing power of the thing goes down because now there's more of it. This is known as a silent tax. Every time the government prints money, which is really the Federal Reserve, which is a private bank that kind of talks to the government, but it's not really within the government. It's very strange, actually. Most people don't understand that. When they print more money by just typing on their screen, 1 trillion more, we'll send it here, we'll send it there, whatever. They are stealing the purchasing power and earning power from each of us. So if you make $50,000 a year, since 2020, your earning power is quite literally no more than $30,000. So if you make $50,000 in 2021, you can only buy about $30,000 worth of goods. Now think about that a second. That does not feel like theft, but it is theft. Why is it a federal crime to counterfeit dollars? Because they don't want you making fake dollars, because that is then inflating the currency, right? But then they can do it, and it's just fiscal policy 101. Pretty funny how that works, isn't it? Now, I won't get into government and how all of it's based on violence and coercion, and it's all immoral, because that's just better safe for another day. And I have a lot of other videos on that, and I'll be covering more on that. This is just about inflation. When they make more money, which the government will continue to do, it just can't stop. Prices will continually rise. You also see asset prices rising. You see homes rising. And this is pricing a lot of people out that could otherwise buy a home. How are you going to buy a home, 3-bedroom home, in a place like Austin, Texas? They're literally $400,000 to $500,000 right now. $400,000 to $500,000. In the 70s and 60s, you could buy a 3-bedroom home for under $100,000, maybe even around $50,000 in some cases. $400,000 to $500,000. That means if you got a 20% down payment, $80,000 to $100,000 you have to come up with out of your pocket to buy a home. Are you kidding me? Who has $80,000 lying around that's working a middle-class job? Are you kidding me? All while the price of food and power and everything that everybody buys and wants to buy are going up. This is what inflation does. And the reason it hurts disproportionately the lower and middle classes is because they usually aren't asset holders. They're actually becoming priced out of assets. So if you want to move your way up from middle class to, upper middle class, generally you buy a home, and then you can do things like home equity lines and whatever. And I won't get into the specifics of owning real estate. But generally for the middle class, their home becomes their greatest asset they've ever purchased. And in some ways it is a hedge against inflation, and they live there, whatever. So there are pros and cons to owning homes, right? But for most people, it is the path to a better standard of living through assets and accumulating wealth. Stock market as well. But when they print money, and this is known as a Cantillon effect, they give that money to banks, Who do banks lend money to? Well, you know how hard it is for an average person to get a loan? Even small business owners to get loans? The banks love giving their money out to hedge funds and people that are already wealthy. And then what do they do with those loans that they get on the very low interest rate that they give to these people? They buy assets. So they buy homes, apartment buildings, real estate, raw land, stocks, art. And what happens to the prices? When the rich people have more money to spend and they're competing with each other to get these valuable, scarce assets, what happens? Prices go like this. Inflation is theft on everybody, but it's mostly theft towards the lower and middle class because the very small percent at the top, the 5 to 1%, they benefit. They get free, cheap money to buy more assets, right? That increases their balance sheet and they get to control more assets and they get more cash flow, et cetera. And it rises the prices of the assets they own because of what I just talked about, the competition for assets. Can you see how destructive and insane this system is? WTF in 1971 is about what happened in 1971 when Nixon took us off the gold standard. Since then, the wealth inequality, you can see the lines. It's like this, pew, because the elite control the money and the people around the elite that are close to the money spigot benefit the most. They get massively richer and the assets that everybody wants to own, because everybody wants to own stocks and real estate and all these things like all humans do. But the rich continually raise the prices, price them out, while the purchasing power of the money that we're earning, like if we earn a check, because most people that are lower middle classes, they work time for dollars. That earning power is going down. And then they get those dollars and they can't put them into assets because the assets are going up in price. So what do? They just have these dollars that's in their bank account. It forces them to spend more. They become more of a high time preference individual rather than a saver or an investor because they have no damn choice. And all it does is make the rich richer and the poor poor. And then what you see from all these moron socialists and the moron politicians that cater to these moron socialists, it's not the wealthy's fault. It is the control on the money supply and the banksters and the government bureaucrats that are all in bed together with everyone. It's a crony capitalism and it's the monopoly on the money. That is the real group of people to blame. And even them have kind of inherited the system. So they get in this game and they can't actually change it. These are the rules set forth by some idiot politician that we know was a crook literally 50 years ago. And we're still paying for this, right? Because government doesn't change. It just does things and it doesn't ever rescind or fix or correct. There's no skin in the game whatsoever. And this is why government is always doomed to failure because it will just grow until it's too big to maintain and then it dies. It's like a Frankenstein that way. I get why the people come into this game and they have to play these rules and they're doing the best they can. And I don't think most of the people in government, aside from a few of the sociopaths, right? There are people in government that generally believe that they can do good and they want to do good, whatever. But then they get into this system that's already rigged and broken and it's got all these ways to play. And you either play this game this way and you basically engage in the crony capitalism and politics, or you get booted out. And then you have to like appeal to the masses and feed them propaganda and feed them identity politics and feed them crap they want to hear, or you don't get votes. And then they get in and again, and they play the game so much that they eventually become part of the game. Now they're the puppets or the puppet string puppet masters that are then controlling the masses, and they're reinforcing the rules of this game because they know they're not going to change it. And they've been in it so long that they cannot even see the water that's around them anymore. And they forgot who they were. They become somebody else. So I get it, but we still have to topple it. That's still the way it is. And this is why Bitcoin, without it, if we did not have Bitcoin, I don't know what we would do. I would probably be living in a bunker somewhere, or I'd probably have already left the United States. So here's 2 more tweets and I'm gonna let you go. Now, what this requires, do your research. Listen to the What is Money podcast, 1 to 9 episodes by Michael Saylor and Robert Breedlove. That's very good. Listen to, anything about inflation, debt, money, get audiobooks, like read all the free stuff, look at charts, like understand this. Go to WTF happened in 1971. You have to do the research for yourself to understand this. This took me a while to really, truly get. Ron Paul tweeted this yesterday too. By creating many trillions of new dollars out of thin air, the Fed set in motion an economic disaster. The warnings are over. Inflation is now here. Every excuse will be offered up as a reason for economic pain. Don't be deceived. The unconstitutional Fed is the reason. And then we have this graphic, which is $1 worth of purchasing power, which you'll have to see on YouTube. But basically, I'll list off a few products here. So $1 in 1913 bought 30 Hershey's bars. Today, it's $27. You could buy 10 rolls of toilet paper for $1. Now it's $15. You could buy 10 bottles of beer for $1. Now it's $20, basically. And that's like a low end. You could buy 20 bottles of Coca-Cola in 1944. Now it's $14.71 for 20 bottles. You could buy 10 bags of pretzels. Now it's $10 for 10 bags. You could buy one drive-in movie ticket. Now that's about $8.35. You could buy 17 oranges in 1971. Now that's about $6.40. Probably more than that, actually, because oranges are heavy, and I've seen the rates on some of those. It adds up. In 1987, you could buy 2 boxes of crayons for $1. Now it's $2.28. And that's probably the reason that hasn't gone up as much, probably because of deflation and crayon manufacturing's got a lot better. You could buy 4 grapefruits in 1997 for $1. Now it's $1.61. So in 1913, the Federal Reserve Act creates a central bank with the ability to control the money supply. In 1934, U.S. President Roosevelt criminalizes the possession of gold. That was another way that they controlled it. In 1930, before then was the Great Stock Market Crash and the Great Depression. In 1944, the Bretton Woods Agreement establishes the gold standard and the U.S. dollar as a world's reserve currency. In 1970, the gold standard is abandoned and currencies are no longer linked to gold. Or 1971, that's the WTF happened in 1971. Nixon did this. And this happened because other sovereign states, France, I think England redeemed some. They got sick of the government printing money because the American kept printing dollars and that was hurting them. They were like, give us our gold back. Nixon saw this happening more and more and more. And so he's like, nope, not going to happen anymore. This will be a temporary measure though. Don't worry. It was to prevent the government from losing all its gold because up until that point, you could redeem dollars for gold. So the big countries that were like, hey, you're just printing all this money. We want our gold back. We don't want these dollars that you're just inflating away. And then he's like, oh, well, not going to do that anymore. Enough's enough. And because we were the economic superpower bully, nobody could really contend with us. And they basically had to accept it. From there, you see like the decline in the dollar and value just drops precipitously. 1980, 1999, 2000, 2010, quantitative easing begins in response to the financial crisis. That was 2009. And then in 2020, the U.S. money supply grew by $3.8 trillion, equal to 20% of all dollars ever created. And they printed even more since then. So like I said, we're between like 25 and 30, maybe even 35% expansion of the money supply, which basically means a 25 to 35% inflation rate, which basically means that you are now 25 to 35% poorer in every dollar that you own, and you are making less money. So the answer is buy Bitcoin. So on bitcoin.com/Colin Stuckert, get on a set it and forget it daily buy schedule. You can buy daily, so you get the ups and the downs. Also the Fold card. This is really cool. I'll have a link in the show notes for this. The Fold card is a prepaid debit card, and I think they're even coming out with a credit card. And every time you swipe somewhere, there's a spin button. You get like 1% cash back in Bitcoin, which is better than any other credit card because other credit cards might give you like 2 or 3% cash back, but those get inflated away. Why would you want to have dollars when you have Bitcoin? Bitcoin's going up. As the dollar comes down, Bitcoin goes up. So 1% in an asset, the strongest money ever created that's going up is better than getting the rapidly declining, inflating away dollar, which is going down. I'm moving to basically doing all of my purchasing through the Fold card. And what's really cool, if you shop on Amazon a lot, like I do, you buy a gift card through the app and let's see, what do? You get 5% cash back. And I think there's a limit to how much you can do that because you can obviously take advantage of that, but 5%. So I think on a purchase I did yesterday, I got like $5 to $6 in Bitcoin back on a $100 Amazon purchase. And it's like the thousands and thousands of dollars I spent on Amazon, like every year for the past 5 years. If I had this card, and I mean, it's kind of newer, so I think it's only been around about a year, but if I was using this, I would have over $10,000 in Bitcoin. And then with the rise in it, incredible. The Fold card, which I'll have a link below, check that out. Click the link, join there. You get 25% if you use my link. And no, it's $25. And I think I get 25 too. I'm not sure, but you at least get 25 if you register, and then you get one of the cards. I think it's a fee for the small card and it's a yearly fee for the big one. But I think the big one's worth it. It's like $150 a year, but the rewards are going to just crush that. I know it's going to crush that. If you do the math, it's massive. So the Fold card is actually I think going to be massive. I think it's going to be huge. And as it gets bigger, you're going to get more rewards. They're going to have more ability to compete and make the rewards even better to attract more people in. So I'm very, very pro this company, the Fold card. So that's pretty cool. And that's not sponsored. That's just something I started using. And then I can refer people. So it's a simple referral link. All right. I got a call coming in. It's time to go. Thebetterhuman.co. Get it and do something about this inflation nonsense.